all of this other root material is root material that grows during the growing season so the roots can do what they're supposed to do. Find water, find nutrients. They have to be growing to do that. And again, the plant's putting energy down in the roots to do that. Well, what happens in the fall when the top part of the plants all senesce or die? The top parts all die. Come, November, or even before that, because winter's coming. You can't support top growth, you can't support a shoot system during the wintertime. So all that dies. Well, once that dies, the roots have no more support. There's nothing feeding them. All of this root biomass that grew during the previous growing season now dies and decays and goes right into the soil as organic matter. That's why the soil in a prairie is so much more organic matter, and it goes so much deeper, is because it's coming from the annual growth and death over millions of years, growth and death of root systems, or thousands of years for us since the last ice age. In a forest, that doesn't happen. In a forest, a large amount of the root material below ground is woody. That doesn't die every year. Only a small part of the root system of a woody plant is going to die each year. So forests do not have that same input of organic matter. And what happens then, and this is meant to show all of that organic matter of those root systems dying in place, that goes right into the soil. Right there, right into the soil. Most of the organic matter coming from a forest comes from the leaves that fall off the tree. Well, they fall off the tree and they land on the surface of the soil. Now, they will get, some of that organic matter will get down into the soil, but not way down, 10 feet, 5 feet. That organic matter from forests enters into the soil from the surface, mainly through leaves. Organic matter in a prairie enters directly into the soil from the annual growth and death of roots. So, number 4. Again, this is an important one. Prairie looks like one prairie to another prairie looks similar. I'll grant you that. Yeah, they're both grasslands. They're both grasslands. That means that they have a similarity. All grasslands have. But the exact nature and type of that prairie in Iowa is different for all of these reasons. You see on this map here. This map shows the landforms. This again, by the way, is the Des Moines Lobe, where the last glacier came in 14,000 to 12,000 years ago. So this is a very young landscape. The glacial till that was deposited there was just deposited 10,000 years ago. Fresh land, brand new geological deposit for new soils to form in. And most of this part of the state had a layer of loess that was laid down on it. Again, I'm just pointing out, all these arrows point to all the different things that are associated with these different landforms. Gravel moraines and poor drainage because of a poorly developed soil in the Des Moines Lobe. And that's what makes Doolittle Prairie a wet music prairie that's got potholes. It's a part of the prairie pothole complex. Shallow soil up here, and again because of the limestone near the surface. Steep slopes, bedrock exposure in the Paleozoic Plateau. Sand deposits occur along most of the eastern rivers. Sand deposits forming those sand prairies. The river valleys here again create this prairie, savanna, and woodland mosaic. I'm going to show you why in a little bit. Paleosols are very, very ancient old soils that are exposed at the surface. They have low fertility, high amounts of clay. They're down here in southern Iowa. The loess hills, deep deposits of loess, up to 200 feet thick deposits of loess, and steep topography, steep slopes, southwest facing slopes that are as hot and dry as 200 miles further west into the Great Plains. So again, it's this complex intermingling of landforms, climate variation, biogeography, makes again the prairies that we had and still have as remnants all different kinds of prairie. Yes?
I would just add, Tom, that paleosol that you talked about, I interviewed a farmer one time in that region, and they called that the infertile crescent.
Infertile crescent? Yeah, that works. All right, so that's why there's lots of kinds of prairie. Now, here's another important concept. Going from prairie to savanna to woodland to forest. This is an important gradient that occurs all throughout Iowa because Iowa was really a mosaic of all four of these kinds, especially again in the eastern half of Iowa. All of these were present in different places on the landscape. And what it boils down to, as you can see in this gradient here, is just simply we're going from a prairie that has less than 10% covered by trees. That means less than 10% covered by trees. This is a view of the prairie as we would see it. This is the view of the prairie as a hawk sees it, flying overhead, looking down on the land. An aerial view. And you can see of this whole area in this box, there's less than 10% covered by trees. So prairies can have a few trees on them and they're still prairies, but not very many. A savanna, as you can see here, now has a few more trees. Now, from 10 to 35% covered by trees is what we call a savanna, or I call it. A woodland, 35 to 65%, and a forest, 65 to 100% covered by trees. So it's the amount of trees, the density of trees, how much aerial cover those canopies have over the land that distinguishes each of these types. A prairie here, a savanna or woodland here, and a forest here. What causes this gradient in different amounts of trees, different covers of trees? We'll see in just a little bit. A really good indicator that you're walking among savanna, a place where there was a savanna. We don't have savannas really anymore because most of the areas that were savanna have become agricultural. They become pastures, or they've grown in with trees and now they're forests. It's not surprising, actually, if you just look here, what's going to happen if original savanna in Iowa no longer, and I'll point out one of the important factors, fire. If fire stops happening on the landscape, which happened when Iowa was settled, then trees have nothing to stop them. Nothing's going to stop those trees from growing. And it goes from that to that to that in about 50 years or 60 years or so. Now you can still find savannas in something that looks like that, but you can only find them in terms of the presence of these huge old savanna trees that are still there, haven't died yet, but they're surrounded by other smaller, younger age trees. This is called a wolf tree. An old savanna specimen of a tree that still is there, but probably doesn't have too many more years left. The spreading branches is a good clue. When you see these lower branches spreading out, going out horizontally, that means when it grew up, there weren't any trees around it. It was able to grow a crown that went out and took up more light that way. Now, in a forest, because trees are crowded together, they can't grow like that. So fire was one of those important factors that determines how many trees are present on the landscape. And this is number 5. Fire is certainly an essential, important process. Fire, I call fire just simply a manifestation or essentially an outcome of climate. Whether you have an environment, a landscape that was heavily impacted by fire, as we do here, depends on your climate. Basically 3 things: seasonality and precipitation. You have some times of the year when you get a lot of rain, that grows a lot of vegetation, but then you get a time when it's dry, droughty. That vegetation stops growing and it dies and it becomes flammable. That's the production of fuel. This and this combined make fuel. And it makes fuel that's flammable. Then you simply need ignition. That happens with thunderstorms and lightning. Lightning causes the fuel to be ignited. This shows some work out in Nebraska that shows that under a lightning-derived system of fire on our landscape, which again was what happened for millions of years before humans occupied North America. Fire was here long before the Native Americans came from Asia. This shows the lightning-caused fires in Nebraska when they happen the most. July and August, the 2 prime months. This shows the thunderstorm days, and you can see that it covers the entire summer season pretty much. They're a little bit more in May and June, so these are the wetter times. Basically what this is showing is that you could expect sort of this situation is kind of difficult because in order to get lightning-caused fire, you need a thunderstorm. Well, thunderstorms also bring rain. Rain puts fire out. So how is this going to work? You need to have a situation where there's dry lightning, more dry lightning kind of situation, where there's thunderstorm activity, but not enough precipitation, not enough water vapor to support really much rainfall. And that's going to happen in the last part of the summer, July, August, and into the first part of September. So that's when I think we had our natural lightning-caused fires. That's when they would have happened on our landscape. And when you have fire, what makes fire happen more and more? Increasing fire frequency, well, climates are hot and dry. So droughts. Anytime there was a drought cycle, you would expect fire to become much more common. We see that still today. And we see more and more wildfires, of course, because of the change in climate that we are experiencing. Fuel loads, anything that makes a high amount of fuel out there. Lots of dead, flammable vegetation.